It says it's 6 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call this meeting, Lancaster County Council, together here on September the 26th, 2022. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. Appreciate you coming to participate in our county's business. And with that, would you please rise and join Councilmember Larry Honeycutt as he leads us in our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we thank you for all the blessings that you've given us this week and all these days of our lives, and we appreciate it very much. Lord, we ask you to look down on those with illnesses. We have members of our council family that has family members that need our prayers. Yesterday, we put to rest a great volunteer firefighter, Mr. Gus Graw. Lord, bless his family. Make the pain of losing Gus easy, Lord, if possible. Now, as we go into this meeting, we ask you to bless everyone here and help us to go through this meeting and do what's good for Lancaster County. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Honeycutt. Let's move on now to our approval of our agenda. To have a motion.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. McGriff, a second from Mr. Blackman. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. I have a couple of special presentations tonight. The first one is a recognition of reaccreditation of the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office from the South Carolina Law Enforcement Accreditation Council, presented by Chip Johnson, South Carolina Accreditation Council. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of County Council. Quite humbly and certainly an honor to come back before you again for the purpose of presenting reaccreditation to the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. For those of you in attendance who may not be aware, this accreditation that the Sheriff's Office now has had four reaccreditations, and in 3 times they have duly been accredited from both the state and the national law enforcement accreditation. This in the state level is 297 standards that the Sheriff's Office demonstrates every 3 years for each of those 3 years independently, that they have followed the policies and procedures that they submitted to the accreditation for the first time to ensure that they are following the best practices as professionals in law enforcement. These standards are adjusted accordingly as the profession continues to change and grow and improve. And your Sheriff's Office has not only met that, but in many ways led the way. They are looked at by many other agencies in this state as for guidance and as a leader in the state accreditation process. Captain Eric Brown, who serves as your accreditation manager on behalf of Sheriff Vail, is regularly sought out for his advice and mentorship to new agencies undertaking this task. And each and every time, he never turns them down. He serves as an assessor for us to go out into the other agencies as our eyes and ears to ensure that they meet the level of professionalism that Lancaster County has set that bar and meets each and every time. All of you should be extremely proud of this organization and the way in which they operate, the way in which they hold themselves accountable, not only to you, but to the citizens of Lancaster County. And they are to be commended for doing so. They do an outstanding job. So it's my pleasure at this time to once again present to Sheriff Vail, Captain Brown, their certificate of accreditation for the State Law Enforcement Accreditation Council.
Sheriff, you got anything you'd like to say? All right, well, we're not here about, it's not about us. This is about y'all. Y'all, no, we don't want no credit. We do appreciate our sheriff's department is there every year. They've been nationally and state accredited for I don't know how many years in a row now, and it's a great organization, and the standards that they fall under and adhere to is just great for our community. And again, we thank y'all for what y'all do. We do have a special guest. A couple people have informed me we have Congressman Ralph Norman here tonight. We appreciate your presence. All right, our second presentation tonight, a special presentation, is an overview of the Lancaster County Library's summer reading program presented by Susie Baker and Maggie Keeble, Youth Services Librarians.
Good evening, Council Chair and members of Council. It's good to be here tonight to give a presentation to just talk about some of the wonderful things that are going on at Lancaster County Library. I'm April Williams. I'm the director of the library. With me tonight is Nancy Berry. She's the deputy director, also the manager of the Del Webb branch. We have Maggie Keeble, who is youth services librarian at the Del Webb branch, and Susie Baker, who does our youth services at not only the main, but also at our Kershaw branch. So every summer, children experience what is called the summer slide, where they lose literary skills because they're out of school. So we craft programs, our summer reading programs, to help children avoid that summer slide. And it's not just reading, so we not only encourage reading, we have programs that encourage science, technology, art, and so we wanted to share with you tonight some of those programs. There we go. One more. There we go. So Susie's going to share some of the amazing stats we had, some of our participation numbers that we had, and some of the sponsors that we had this year at the Lancaster Main Library and also Kershaw.
Hey, how are y'all doing? So we had a total of 378 registered. That's all of our children, teens, and adults. We had just over 95,000 pages read for our children who participated in the program, about almost 28,000 pages read by our teens, and 600 books read by our adults. We offered 37 programs for all ages, so everything from story times to STEM challenges to adult book clubs to movie nights. So we had about 37 programs over the summer and saw 1,500 participants come in. We had several sponsors that helped make this happen for us. We had Comporium help us. Walmart, Domino's provided us some yummy snacks. Cliff West helped us get a dunk tank to dunk some librarians for our wrap-up party to make that happen, and the city fire department helped us fill it up graciously. And then in Kershaw, we had about 216 total people registered. Our Kershaw children read about 117,000 minutes. Our teens just read over 24,000 pages, and then our adults read just over 400 books. In Kershaw, we had about 31 programs total for a wide range of ages again. And we saw about 900 participants in Kershaw. A lot of our partners in Kershaw were the restaurants who graciously gave us gift cards that we could raffle off and give to our adult readers, our children readers, to raffle off every Tuesday for programs and things.
Hello, Board. I am the Youth Services Librarian at Del Webb, and I'm here to present the summer reading statistics from our branch. So at Del Webb, we had over about 1,200 patrons sign up for our summer reading program. I would say a good majority of those were children at 909, 178 teens, and 147 adults registered for our programs this year. Up there, we had 439,000 minutes recorded by our kids, over 1,000 pages, and then 900 books by our adults. We offered 54 programs this summer for a variety of age ranges, same as the main branch. We offered STEM programs, we offered teen and tween programs, we offered a bunch of different story times and performers, and we had 5,783 attendees for our programs. And then some of our community sponsors that helped us this year, our Friends of the Library group was very gracious to give us money to purchase books so that every 500 minutes or 500 pages that a child or a teen read and recorded, they were rewarded with a book. We also had Lancaster County Stormwater Management come and do a story time for us this summer, talk about how important water is for our community. And we had Willie's Shaved Ice graciously give us a discount on our kickoff festivities. And then here's some photos from our programs this summer. Like I said, we had some STEM programs. We had children come in and they farmed out shark's teeth and learned about different types of shark's teeth. We had story times for our little kids. We had teen programs for our older kids. And we just had a really great summer this year, all across the board.
So if you look at the totals for the county in completion, it's pretty astounding. 651,255 minutes read across the county. These are infant to fifth grade. For teens, it was almost 475,000 pages read, and for adults, it was 1,911 books read. 8,000 attendees came to these programs across the county. And so these are children and teens who may have never previously had the opportunity to be a part of science programs or technology programs or even art programs. So I just wanted to share with you tonight some of the wonderful things that's going on at the library and some of the community outreach that we have and the people that are being impacted across the county. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask some questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
One is all the statistics. Do we have those in a PowerPoint or a packet?
We'll make sure you have them. We'll make sure you have them.
And I also want to know how many meetings have been at Dell Web from the public?
Nancy Berry would have those. You want meetings in the meeting room?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole purpose. We expanded that meeting room, and we spent $800,000 up there. Mm-hmm. And even today, I got a phone call from one of my constituents saying, why isn't the library available to the public after hours?
We are beginning after-hours meeting October the 1st. All the technology's in place, all the accommodations are in place, and we've already posted that, did a press release on social media. So beginning October the 1st, there are after-hours meetings at Dell Web Library. We're actually doing it first. The main and Kershaw's not ready yet. We have some issues with the door but we're opening Dell Web first because we know that's a priority there, and it's also one of our priorities.
Okay, I've heard various dates from time to time, so I'll believe it when I see it.
Because of the delays with setting in the technology, as you know, even with some of the ARPA funds, when you order technology, you don't get them at the time that you order them or in an expedient manner, but we have been doing everything we can to get those after-hours meetings available for Dell Web because it is important to us.
And the $250 in the development agreements, what are you going to use that for?
The impact fee that's going to be for the new development. Actually, I just learned about it a couple weeks ago when I was sitting in this meeting. So it will go to the area that, of course, it has to go to the area from which is experienced the impact. And we're going to look at that and see how we can.
So, Mr. Smith, how did we come up with the $250 if we didn't talk to the library board?
Well, you can talk about, actually, she can elaborate on her concept about taking the library to more of a coffee house style and kind of the mobile library. So there is a plan.
Good.
Yeah.
Because we have a group that meets in the Starbucks in the Harris Teeter and has their coffee. So maybe
might be
they'll
an
be allowed to meet in the library.
There might be an opportunity, so.
We're actually hoping to put some type of ranch north of Del Webb. Del Webb is actually pretty small for the community that we're servicing, and we do need another library north of Del Webb.
Well, that's interesting because in the comprehensive study, the survey, I didn't see a high emphasis on libraries.
But as you can see from our presentation tonight.
Oh, I agree with that, but I'm just telling you what the constituents said. Their number 3 priorities were roads, education, and I can't remember the third one. I have to look at my notes, but it wasn't the library.
Yeah, if you look at the stats, though, the stats that we have for the circulation and the numbers we're getting at Del Webb and across the county, the library is definitely a priority.
Well, that's good.
So, any other questions?
I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Honey.
I'd like to thank the citizens of Lancaster County for making these libraries possible.
Yes, sir.
If you have not visited Del Webb, our Main, and Kershaw, take a few minutes and drive down and look at them. You won't believe it. They're absolutely beautiful. They're places that kids can go and be safe, learn, have a lot of fun. It is really something that all of Lancaster County should be proud of, and I'm proud of all you people who do such a great job in that library.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate what y'all do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's move on down to citizens' comments. Please bear in mind, this is not a dialogue with council or question and answer period. This is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. I ask that you address your remarks to council as a body and not to any individual council member. Please speak in the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to address council. Your time will not start until you have provided your name and address. Ryan Hitchens. Mr. DeBose, this is in reference to one that I'm going to recuse myself from. Do I need to leave the room for this?
It really depends if there's any debate or discussion of this. I mean, it's citizens' comments. Y'all typically do not engage in any interaction. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, provided you're not commenting or.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Hitchens, and I represent the home builder Century Communities. We are located at 7401 Carmel Executive Park Drive in Charlotte. I wanted to provide a brief overview of our Shiloh Woods project prior to the non-consent agenda item number 8D, which is to have a first hearing on a request to rezone 3 parcels from LDR to MDR. So I've prepared this presentation. Just to give you a little background about Century, we are a well-capitalized, publicly traded national home builder with a strong presence in the Charlotte MSA. As you can see on these 2 slides. Let's see. There we go. We've been in the market since 2017 and have completed and are currently in the development or home building phase of a number of communities in the area. Our site is located off of West Shiloh Unity Road, about 2 miles north of the city of Lancaster and south of the Lennar subdivision, Roseland. I know at the last meeting there were questions about why these 3 parcels needed to be rezoned. These are the 3 in question. And what the big picture was for the land use here. So as you can see on this slide, we've provided our preliminary plat, which we submitted to planning staff for their review, which is a 398 home site community we have named Shiloh Woods. Now, I know everyone hates the cluster overlay, but it's really a great design for this high inflation economic environment we find ourselves in today. The cluster allows us to provide better affordability to the community than one with only 70-foot plus lot sizes in a couple of key ways. First, by allowing smaller lot sizes, you increase the affordability of the average home at the site. For example, a 50-foot lot will cost us about $25,000 less to develop than a 70-foot home site today, lowering the cost to build the house and thus allowing us to offer a lower price. Second, the variety of lot sizes here, including an equal mix of 50, 60, and 70-foot lots, allows us to offer more products, which will appeal to a more diverse group of buyers with varying income levels. We have a strong amenity package planned for the site with a clubhouse, pool, tot lots, and covered pavilion planned among other amenities at the site, and I've included a few examples. Finally, you can see on the next slide some of our products that would be at the site. We expect to sell homes in the $325,000 to $435,000 range, including 1- and 2-story detached homes, all with 2-car garages. There's no attached product planned for the site. Let's see. So we would really appreciate your support to rezone our 3 out parcels from LDR to MDR, which provide us with access to the site as well as a space for a second amenity. And we're here to answer any questions you may have at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hitchens. Alan Patterson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of council. My name is Alan Patterson. I reside at 206 Niven Road in Lancaster, South Carolina. First of all, thank you for your dedication to Lancaster County as residents, and also thank you for the opportunity to serve on the Lancaster County Planning Commission. But tonight I'm here just speaking as a citizen, and my comments are mine and mine alone. I want to speak on a couple of things. First, I want to voice my concern about Ordinance 22-1813, the rezoning of 5 parcels at or near Tadlock Road. My concern is not for the 238 multifamily units. My concern is the additional traffic that it will contribute to Highway 521 in an already congested area. And my bigger concern is the lack of traffic management tools utilized on Highway 521. It appears as a citizen that the only tool we have in our tool belt is traffic signals. That is not a long-term sustainable option for an area that is continued to be developed and continues to extend past Sun City, Carolina Lakes, and into Lancaster now. We have to find other options available and other ways to work with SCDOT to manage our traffic so that traffic and residents can continue to commute. Other options such as collector roads, limited access to Highway 521, frontage and collector roads, and Michigan left turns to keep traffic moving. Secondly, I want to offer my concern with the project introduction meeting contained in the interim UDO that you'll be discussing tonight. More specifically, I think that the project introduction meeting undermines our current process, and I think it also can make the Planning Commission ineffective in the process. By hearing from a developer before the process starts and giving a thumbs up or a nod, therefore bypasses the normal approval. I'm not a lawyer, but I think this body and giving a pre-approval is questionable at best. I think we have a good process in place. I think that by hearing a preliminary or pre-approval gives the wrong message to developers that are coming to ask to do business in our county. I've heard the argument that it's expensive and it costs a lot of money to go through the process, but if a developer or someone doesn't have the money to go through the process, are they really the quality developers that we want in Lancaster County? I would ask for you to, as you listen to the presentation on the interim UDO, that you vote to omit section 3.9.3, paragraph C, items 1 through 4. Thanks so much. I think the UDO has some good benefits to us and will provide quality development without this item. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Mr. Garrett Crenshaw.
Raise this up a little bit. First, I'd like to thank the council, men and women, for their time and consideration on this matter on outdoor billboards. I truly respect your position that you hold today. My name is Garrett Crenshaw, president of Crenshaw Visions, and my business resides in Lancaster as it does in Spartanburg. But I'm a byproduct of Lancaster County. How I got here in front of you today is none other than the support and love from my family and friends and mentors, which some are here today with me. But like any other businessman or woman, I got here because of my community. The Lancaster County community first supported this vision of mine at the age of 16 when I started working with small local businesses and organizations around town. Now I sit here in front of you today, still growing and been blessed beyond measures to continue this vision. But it all started right here in Lancaster. I'm here to leave a legacy and a footprint of my own while giving back to the community that's been given to me. Most recently, on some objects that we've been giving back is we introduced Crenshaw Vision athletes. These three Lancaster-born and raised athletes are furthering their academic and athletic careers in college with the support of our company. And this is just the beginning on how I tend to lead and support this community. But what I'm here to ask for today is 2 sign locations in exchange for 10 acres of land that is suited for recreation or public safety use. The benefit of these signs, in my opinion, there's two key components. I think of public safety and marketing efforts of Lancaster County in a whole. In regards to public safety, the fire EMS and Sheriff's Office can utilize this as recruitment efforts, amber alerts, drug awareness, warnings persons, emergency messages, management messages like we see now with the hurricane that's coming through. We could utilize that with the billboard. Second, with the marketing efforts of the Lancaster County, with Lancaster becoming so fast, one of the 3rd fastest growing counties in the state, it is apparent to highlight what makes this county great. Some recent things that we've done in Chester County to highlight some of the marketing efforts that they did. We did a campaign called Gateway 2, which highlighted the industry, the agriculture, and the history and adventure of this county. What better way to display this county than to the everyday traveler? In reference to everything above, we're looking to guarantee a slot on these signs for the said matters. We ask you to allow it in the institutional zoning for the proposed locations, to allow it in the overlay district, where marketing efforts for small businesses, bigger businesses, have limited ways to advertise in this part of the county. To allow the same size sign as the current competition holds, no greater, no less. This all in all benefits the county to gain access to prime real estate without monetary transaction. By any other means, this is a trade deal. I'm not asking something for nothing. But finally, I'm from Lancaster. I want to continue to grow in Lancaster, and I hope Lancaster County will stand behind me and continue this vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crenshaw. That concludes our citizens' comments this evening. And let's move down to item 7, our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent agenda item 7A.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Carnes. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Let's move on down to our non-consent agenda. 3rd reading of ordinance 2022-1813 regarding rezoning property for 5 parcels located at and adjacent to 9224 Tadlock Drive from neighborhood business NB and general business GB to regional business RB, applicant Two Capital Partners. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Ms. McGriff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Blackman. Mr. Burhans.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of council. As indicated, this is a proposed 3rd reading for a rezoning of a 50-acre site located at US 521 and Tadlock Drive. The intent is to rezone these 50 acres to the regional business district to construct a multi-family development consisting of 238 units, as well as 2 commercial outparcels fronting 521, Council gave second reading consideration at your September 12th meeting where you voted to approve second reading. I have no new information to present, but certainly make myself available for any questions. And the applicant is here as well if you have any questions for them.
Mr. Chairman, I got some questions.
Go ahead, Mr.
One, did you get an update from the school district and the impact on the school?
I personally have not, but I think Mr. Marstall has been in communications.
And what was that feedback?
The feedback was the school district and county council will talk about input at the upcoming quarterly luncheon, and they did not have any specific feedback for this development or any other developments on the agenda.
Will there be feedback on following items from this point forward?
After we have a conversation with the school board and the council members and the quarterly elected officials luncheon is how they said they wanted to approach the discussion. So they've been offered the opportunity.
But I did see an email from the superintendent that said it's no secret that Indian Land schools are running out of space. So
Right.
I think as a council and as a planning staff, you need to bear that in mind when you're recommending approval for these high-density or projects.
Our hope or intention when we meet with the school board and the superintendent is to outline the best way for them to get that feedback. We've offered, planning staff always offers
Yeah, I
in all of
understand.
our processes. So we will have that conversation, but the offer has been extended.
Yeah, they don't work for us and we don't work for them. So that's it. And the other question I got is about the traffic. Have you thought about any more about my comments on the traffic impact analysis and how I don't think these engineers are really looking at the real situation on the ground? This one in particular is disturbing because it's, are you familiar with it and have you been at that intersection?
I'm familiar with the site, yes.
And so you know that just to the north of it is Northfield Drive, and there are a large number of trucks and residents that make a left turn not too far from this proposed entrance. So it's going to be a very tricky situation. And also, there's a median cut there, and I hope there are not plans for a traffic light because we don't need any more traffic lights, especially ones that are close together.
So again, I think that there's been a continuation of that conversation on Highway 521, not specific to this project, but keep in mind that, RFATS has initiated a study some months ago to examine the widening of 521 to provide that relief that's, needed along this corridor. And so, they are going to be, rolling out those results in the coming months or possibly a little bit longer. And I think that's really the information and the feedback that the county wants is, how do we achieve the overall goal of having the road widened versus the kind of the piecemeal improvements that we see with all development projects.
Okay. I know that 74% of the respondents in the comprehensive study said traffic congestion was the number one concern. And finally, the last question I got, Mr. Chairman, has to do with the fire district. And you said the fire marshal looks at it, but my question really was, does the volunteer fire departments up there get an input into their capabilities of covering it? I know the fire marshal's going to look at the codes. And the only reason I'm bringing all this up is I think that the comprehensive study survey was very clear that citizens are concerned about the infrastructure and they think the county is growing too fast. And I think most people in this room would agree with that. So is staff communicating, or is the fire marshal communicating with the volunteer fire departments to assess their resources and their ability to cope with new developments?
I don't want to speak for the fire marshal, but it's not my belief that he is taking individual projects that he's reviewing to the locally assigned district unless there's something unique about it where he needs to assess if they have the right equipment to serve a unique project, a tall building, something along those lines. I think, and again, I'm using the word think, I think our fire marshal might be a member of the volunteer fire district that serves that parcel.
Well, that'd be good.
I think that's the case.
Well, I'm just thinking.
Was a member at Indian Land. I don't know if he's still part of it or not.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Moss.
Rox, the right turn lane that the Planning Commission was asking for, was it in the TIA? Is that
Yes, sir.
in concrete?
As part of second reading, we did have the applicant go back, and there's also an access change. So he said, go back, rework the TIA for the modified access, incorporate the turn lane that they're voluntarily offering to construct, and they have done so. It is in the development agreement and will be constructed as part of this project.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any more questions?
I would like to comment on the RFAT study. You know, it is looking at Highway 521, but it's also looking at all the auxiliary roads, Possum Hollow, Henry Harris, Marvin, Shelley Mullis, Harrisburg, and, you know, that'll be all part of the study because they really look at that as one road system.
But my major concern is all the stuff that's already being permitted and the impact on the traffic. And maybe we got some pretty heavy duty politicians in here that can maybe speed up the 521 corridor improvements. Because that would be tremendously. But seriously, think about it. I mean, what is there, 7,000 houses already permitted, and we keep adding more and more to it?
Lancaster has a lot of entitled housing.
Yeah, I mean, they do. And it's just, I think it's time this council does something about it. We like to sit on our hands till it comes to approval, and then we raise our right hand.
Well, we've talked about, and I think perhaps now is the right time to have some more bigger picture growth discussions on how we want to move forward in the coming years. And so, you know, we're open to having those, and whether it's attending them and discussing it, or even facilitating a more active discussion. So we're open.
Mr. Chair, you know, we tend to have this conversation about growth, and we never have a serious conversation. I think, as you said, Rox, I think we're to the point now where we know the growth in Indian Land, and we know the housing and apartments that's coming. We're going to either need to slow it down or stop it. Otherwise, you know.
You agree with me?
I do.
Staff's been collecting some data on that, and we can talk about this offline or at another event. But we've been collecting data on this to report back to council that we think might be helpful as maybe a starting point for this conversation. So we welcome that, and yeah, sounds exciting to participate in.
Yeah. Serious discussion.
All right. Any more discussion? Comments?
Well, just one comment, Mr. Chairman. Again, I think as we go down that road of having some serious discussion, the first question we need to ask ourselves is, why do we want growth? And then when we answer that question, we need to ask ourselves after that, what kind of growth do we want? So I look forward to those discussions.
I'm agreeing with you too, Alan.
I just hope lightning strikes.
What is this, all feel good about each other night?
Let's have a group hug.
Let's see how many of you agree with me now. Last meeting, I mentioned a very dirty word, a moratorium, but I also said we need to stop, look, and listen. We need to sit down and see how many houses are we going to have under contract right now. 7,000, is that it? Is there 7,000 been approved?
I don't have.
We need to take a look at how many people we think might be in those 7,000 houses, how many more automobiles are going to be in those 7,000 houses, and we need to take a hard look at it, because we're making ourselves, I don't know, we're just making ourselves look very bad at times, I think. You try to get through 521 at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you can forget it. I can go to 521 and go over to 77 and get home faster than I can come down 521. That's a shame. But here we keep packing them in. I think we're doing the Indian Land area an injustice by continuing to do this. We need to come on down south and do some of these things, but keep building. In Harrisburg Road, for example, that's where we always go when we go to the mall. My wife loves to go to the mall. And we go up there, and right now going Harrisburg Road is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. You don't want to drive fast because you'll be run over by a bulldozer, a big truck. You don't know what's going to happen up there. And the roads have absolutely tore the roads all to pieces. And our taxpayers are going to have to pay to get it done, get it fixed. And I think it's wrong. We need to take a hard look at what we're doing up there. And I don't think we're taking us. We need to do a study on it, do something, because we're turning that place into a nightmare, a George Washington Bridge nightmare in New York City. Don't ever go there on Friday afternoon. I promise you that. That's bad. But we need to take a hard look at this, folks.
I got a question.
Now, does anybody agree with me?
Rox, of those homes that they're talking about is approved, how many of them's in those PDDs that's back from the 2000s, early 2000s? They're based.
So it's hard to give you an exact number from the PDs. We do still have PDs, to your point, that go back to the early 2000s. Cross Ridge still has a multifamily element, or Inspiration Ministries as part of their PD and development agreement. They have not come to the table with a unit count or timing yet. We've got Collins Road PD that had off the top of my head, 400 townhomes that just got preliminary plat approval 3, 4, 5 months ago. So that'll be coming online relatively soon. So we have, staff has the data that to kind of initiate and engage in these conversations. So you have a clear picture of what's been done and what's coming ahead, and we can share it from a number standpoint. We can map it. Most of it's already mapped. So we're prepared to have that conversation and dialogue whenever you're ready.
Well, can you send us that information?
Sure. Actually, a lot of it's already on our website.
Well, I went on the website today looking for things, and of course, I am not a techie. I'm a strawberry farmer, so, but I couldn't find it.
Well, if you want to get on want to get on a call together, I'll guide you there, or I'll send you a direct link. Either way.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Part of that confusion might have been on our website. It talks about development services, and that's just some overall title. People need to know what the building department is, and I know it's subcategorized underneath there, but there's that part of lack of intuitiveness with our web design. We need to improve the web design.
I mean, I was looking actually for the zoning map for Lancaster County because I was interested in the different zones, and I couldn't find it on the website, and so when I Googled it, I got a bunch of companies that wanted to send it to me.
I agree.
So it's not just me?
Oh, it's not just you. I called Claire last time I needed something on our website so she could navigate it for me.
Okay.
Well, we're off subject, but
Any more comments related to ordinance 2022-1813?
I have a comment I'd like to follow up from Mr. Honeycutt's comments. Looking at development in Indian land is part of the big picture, but everything that's south of Indian land is going to come up through 521 through Indian land. So, I mean, we've got to take a holistic approach when we look at all of this.
yeah, again, we have a high-powered politician in here, and I would suggest to do something like number 5.
Yeah.
Just send them at the bottom of the south end islands.
All right.
I'll just leave
Give
it
them a one-way.
Any more discussion on this before we vote? It's your last chance. Any comments? I think we're ready to vote on third reading of ordinance 2022-1813. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Likewise, it passes by a vote of 5 for and 2 opposed. Let's go down to third reading of ordinance 2022-1814 regarding approval of a development agreement with 2 capital partners. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion for Mr. Blackman. I have a second.
Second.
Second from Mr.
Mr. Chair,
Mostello.
Motion to amend.
All right, go ahead.
I move to amend ordinance 2022-1814 as requested by staff in the agenda item summary to correct the acreage of the commercial parcel so that it reads 6.81 acres, and to amend Exhibit B to the development agreement to correct a Stryver's error in the TIA requirement. The correct form of each document are in our agenda material.
All right, have a motion to amend from Ms. McGriff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Honeycutt. Any discussion on this amendment? Let's go on and vote on the amendment. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, likewise. The amendment passes by 6 for and 1 opposed. All right, Mr. Burhans, is there anything or else? Everything's the same. Any discussion on this?
I would just like to compliment the plan with the more than adequate parking that's in there, and it's very strategically located as opposed to some developments we've seen.
Okay. All right, so we're ready to vote on third reading of ordinance 2022-1814 as amended. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, likewise. Third reading of ordinance 2022-1814 passes by a vote of 5 for and 2 opposed. Let's move down to 8C, second reading of ordinance 2022-1823 regarding amending the fiscal year 22-23 budget. Do I have a motion?
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Honeycutt.
Mr. Chair, I have
A
a
second from Mr. Carnes. Go ahead, Mr. Mostello.
I move to amend ordinance 2022-1823 to conform with the ordinance version attached to the agenda package and is shown on the red line edits of the ordinance.
All right, do I have a second on that amendment?
Second.
Second from Mr. McGriff. Any discussion on the amendment? Let's go on and vote on it. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval of our amendment for our budget ordinance. Ms. Belk?
Mr. Chair, members of the councils, there was no major changes with the items that were presented last meeting. In regards to the amendment, just for the audience's sake, that item is to allow fire service to purchase 60 tires that are between the age of 7 to 10 years, as has been recommended by the county insurance, and that amounts $35,000 to come from general fund balance.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Belk? You good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
I thank you. Hearing no more discussion, we're ready to vote on second reading of ordinance 2022-1823 as amended. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Mr. Carnes will take over the chair as I am recusing myself on this next agenda item, as I have a vested interest in this project.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-1822?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Honeycutt, second by Mr. Mosteller. Do we have any comments?
Are we going to hear a report on it? I mean, this is a motion that was reconsidered, and usually for a reconsideration, there's new information that causes a reconsideration. Can we have that new information?
There's 2 maps that were not presented to council last time. This would be one of them, just showing the site plan so you can see the 4 parcels in question. And then last time, I believe you did not have the layout, a proposed layout. Is that another map? Next slide. And then I don't believe in your materials last time you had the proposed layout and density for the parcel.
Can we have Mr. Burhands go through this project for us?
Sure.
So I believe we had some of these maps the last time. But I could be wrong. We didn't have the citizens' comments, no. Well, that's why I'm asking now for the new information. We had the maps, that's not new information. I just want to know what the new information is.
Go ahead, Mr. Burhands.
Yes. Thank you, members of council. Again, as reflected a few moments ago, this is a proposed rezoning of 3 parcels located on Shiloh Unity West as well as Williams Farm Road, totaling approximately 20 acres. They are currently zoned low-density residential, and the intent is to rezone them to the medium-density residential district. The overall intent for the project is to, if these 3 parcels totaling 20 acres were to be rezoned, the intent would be to combine them with a larger tract that consists of approximately 150 acres to create a 170-acre development tract where the applicant would like to develop a cluster subdivision project. Said cluster subdivision project, which I think was shown on an earlier slide, has approximately 398 lots with a density of approximately 2.3 dwelling units an acre. I'll certainly make myself available for any questions on this item.
So what's the new information? I mean, you gave that information the last time.
Yes, this is the information from the last presentation.
I know, but I thought for a motion to reconsider, you had to, it was for new information. Am I wrong, Mr. Attorney?
So motions to reconsider are often made for additional information. I don't know that there is any hard and fast rule from Robert's Rules of Order that says you have to receive new information. That's typically the context they're made within, though.
I understand this is mainly for access purposes, according to the applicant. Is that correct? And they wanted to put a amenity center on one of them.
I can't speak to the community center aspect, but there is a desire to, as you can see from this, as you can see in the attached map, the subject property does have limited frontage on Shiloh Unity West Road, which is the principal street serving the project. The inclusion of most of the 20 acres would expand their frontage on Shiloh Unity and does, create more access opportunities for the project site as well as other opportunities for development.
Can you highlight where their existing access is, or where it was before?
So I believe the existing access is there. You can see that if you see the little blue straw, if you will, that is where the existing site access occurs, as well as there is an easement on the left-hand side that's sort of a loop up into the parcel. I'm sorry, we don't have it. Laser pointers just don't touch that screen. Yes. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Burhands? Thank you, Mr. Burhands. Any additional comments from council members?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're going to be serious about, and I don't have, this particular one's not a good example, but one of the reasons I was looking for the MDR and the zoning maps is to see how much MDR there is in the county. And one of the ways that we can control growth, I believe, is through ordinances and zoning. And we should not continue to rezone everything from LDR to MDR or NR or RN to MDR. MDR makes them automatically open to cluster development. Now, this big tract was already zoned MDR, so it's eligible for that. And I, from my previous comments, I have not been a big fan of cluster development.
Any additional comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor, a motion from Mr. Honeycutt, seconded by Mr. Mosteller. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes 4-2.
Let's move on down to, get my pen. 8E, first reading of ordinance 2022-1811 regarding the interim unified development ordinance to UDO. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. McGriff. Do I have a second? Second. Have a second from Mr. Mostello.
That wasn't me, that was Larry.
Larry, second from Mr. Honeycutt, I'm sorry. All right, Mr. Burhans.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of council, thank you again. This is a second presentation regarding the proposed Unified Development Ordinance, interim ordinance, in its consideration for first reading. Okay. So at the, oh, we're getting too far now. All right, let's try this again. So council first gave consideration to this item at its September 12th meeting, where staff provided a general update on the interim ordinance, as well as Planning Commission's recommendation to approve through its 5-to-1 vote. The specific topics that we covered, again, we've come before council many times on this draft ordinance, so we kept it relatively high level and focusing on select topics, which included the opportunities for density increase requests, the aspect of the project that included enhanced front setbacks to ensure that parking does not overhang onto sidewalks or occur too frequently on public roads, as well as the interim ordinance process in terms of how an applicant would facilitate their application through this approval process. There was a lot of discussion on this on a variety of aspects, including the specific ones that I've mentioned before you. And council at that time was not comfortable making a decision, so the item was continued to tonight's meeting to give first ordinance reading consideration. Okay. All right. We're going to get this, I promise. All right, so so here we are on this evening and discussing next steps with the interim ordinance. So one of the things we think is a potential path forward is to retain some of the aspects of the ordinance that some members of council had comfort level with, but perhaps removing other aspects that were maybe less than weren't desired by council members. So one is is removal of the density increase request process. So that was obviously something council generated a lot of debate and discussion about that. So our intent for that was to replace creating a replacement for the mixed use districts to allow apartment and townhome construction. But if that is no longer desired, we can go ahead and just remove those provisions. And in tandem, go ahead and also remove the MX ordinance, which is currently in place, because with the MX ordinance, that is the ordinance typically used to establish new multifamily community apartment developments in the community. And so, in researching, multifamily development, we have approximately 5,000 units in the Panhandle area, either developed, under construction, or entitled. And so there is a healthy, inventory of multifamily. So we feel that not having the MX ordinance or an opportunity to get increased density in the interim ordinance won't create any hardship for the community, that there's still an ample supply of multifamily product that has been built or can be built in the future. Continuing with that, there's the cluster subdivision provision, which it seemed that most members of council were supportive that this cluster subdivision ordinance could remain 4 parcels that are already zoned MDR. So we have kind of looked into MDR zoning and have calculated there are approximately 31 parcels or tracts that could be developed as cluster subdivisions, meaning they have at least 30 acres of land and meet the other qualifications for clusters. So there still seems to be an ample opportunity to develop cluster subdivisions over the next couple years until the full UDO is rewritten and we have a better process for those types of projects. Another aspect of the interim ordinance that seemed to generate some active discussion and debate is with the pre-submittal meetings with council, and we've heard very clearly from members that that's just something they're maybe not comfortable with, which we can go ahead and remove from the interim ordinance and replace those just with open dialogue between staff and the administrator. And if a developer wishes to have some council feedback, they can certainly just contact individual council members to get that feedback. We think this ordinance will still continue with the kind of collaborative master planning approach that we think is very important and which many of our surrounding communities are utilizing, and quite frankly, what Lancaster's used for the past couple decades. It's just an improvement upon those earlier processes that we've used to manage big projects and complicated projects. So I'll certainly make myself available for any questions.
All right, before we go any farther, I got a question from Mr. DeBose. We have a motion and a second on the floor. I have a request to withdraw the second. Is it too late, or? So if the councilman wishes to withdraw his second,
anybody else could second it, though.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to withdraw my second because, for one reason, I do not like the fact that we're bypassing council. Council should not be bypassed on something this important, and I'm not going to support that.
Okay, we got a motion from Ms. McGriff to bring this to floor. Do I have a second? Would anybody like to second it to go any further with this? Mr. DeBose, what happens from here?
If the matter doesn't receive a second, it's not considered by y'all. So, it's, I guess, off the agenda until placed back on, if ever.
All right. Let's move on down to first reading of ordinance 2022-1824 regarding amending the Economic Development Advisory Board.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion for
Second.
Mr. Barnes. I have a second for Mr. Graham. Mr. Marstow.
Chairman and council members, this is an opportunity just to expand one position on the Economic Development Advisory Board to actually have a formal spot for a member from the Indian Land Chamber of Commerce. So that's the one request for this.
All right. Any comments from anybody from the Panhandle that might know something
Yeah,
about this?
well, I think it's a good idea.
That's
That's where a lot of the growth and the business is currently, which I hope will change.
And the chamber up there has grown.
It has grown, and it's been very active and with lots of community support.
I think we need their input. There's going to be some, we have all this growth and a lot of stuff that's happened in Indian Land, very positive. But there's an impending disaster up there, whether people want to believe it or not, because of COVID. It has changed the way that our businesses do business.
Yes.
We have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of beautiful tight Class A office space up there that is becoming vacant. And so one challenge with this council is we're going to have to work and be willing to work with the investors that have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in our county, because the work model has changed, forever. So it's going to take, we're going to have to look at some stuff in the next year or two.
Yeah, I would say that trend had started pre-COVID. I mean, Redstone is is a great company, but their model changed in their telemarketing. That whole thing changed, and they have excess office space now, and I would be concerned about companies that are building office space.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious, what has the advisory board done in the way of accomplishments? Just a couple of them. I'm not hitting any.
I don't know. We've, we've had COVID, and that canceled many of the meetings. Then Mr. Gilbert left, so it hasn't been active. Mr. Marstall, would you comment?
Yeah, a couple of things. The committee did look at the incentive study that you all received from council, gave a little bit of input at that time, and they have really done some more of the business-to-business promotion and worked with our staff about different developments that they've heard in the works. And so they really serve as a sounding board for the ED staff to look at prospects that are coming into town. So, because if you look at the 18 members that are currently on the Economic Development Board, you have a lot of folks involved with our utilities and industry. And so a lot of those folks, think about the Dukes, the Lynches Rivers, Comporium, they hear about prospects coming into the community based upon their role in services. And so they've been able to help make more of that staff level connection as opposed to policy recommendations, to make that staff level recommendations for what is looking in the Lancaster market.
Thank you.
All right. Any more comments before we vote on this addition to our advisory board? All right, I think we're ready to vote. First reading of ordinance 2022-1824. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Move down to our approval of appointments for our Health and Wellness Commission. I have.
Mr. Chairman, my daughter is one of the possible appointees, so I need to recuse myself. So I will step out while y'all entertain this agenda item.
Okay. We won't hold that against her.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion for Mr. for Mr. Honeycutt, and a second from Mr. Carnes. Any discussion? We do appreciate all these who have agreed to serve on our Health and Wellness Commission. So with that, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval of our 3 appointees.
Pate. Personally.
All right, let's move down. We have visited this several months ago. We've had requests and had some conversations with several councilmen who have brought up the possibility of billboards in the 521, I guess, possibility from Lancaster to the state line is, like I say, markets are continuously changing, and the print media does not have the viewership or readership that it used to, and the way that advertising has evolved has changed, and there has been some interest from this council to look at this. So, Mr. Marstall or Mr. Burhans.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, council members, back in June 15th, the committee, the whole meeting, we brought this information forward, the proposal from the Crenshaw companies. During that conversation, it was discussed about what would be some of the issues that need to be addressed in order to make billboards happen. We outlined some of the issues with the 521 corridor overlay district. We highlighted proximity to parks and other things. We also highlighted competition. Would this be an open RFP process? How would you want to go about it? And then we also had conversation about regulating free speech if it's billboards on county property. So based upon the June 15th conversation, the follow-up action was the attorney, Mr. DeBow, sent a letter dated July 12th to Mr. Crenshaw outlining some of those issues. He basically had 6 points that would need to be addressed, from zoning issues to addressing some competitive issues. and based upon that information is where we've left it. Today, I understand we have at our place some information about the proposal from Crenshaw Companies, but again, the issues go back to more legal, and Mr. DeBose can speak about that. But really, the challenge is there are some state and federal regulations as well as our local conditions that need to be satisfied if you want to pursue this going forward. But since we didn't have any other follow-up item besides communication between the attorney and Mr. Crenshaw, that's where we left it, and so we wanted to see if there's any further action needed tonight.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Ms. McGrath.
is Mr. Bose going to speak on any changes from any of those regulations and any of those 6 points that you outlined in your letter back July 12th? Anything has changed since then?
Not necessarily. I mean, those 6 points are kind of the highlights. You know, there are more granular issues, such as minimum parcel size compliance, which I believe Mr. Burhan's touched on during the committee meeting. If this were to move forward, you know, what zoning districts would be appropriate? Again, what portions of the highway corridor overlay need to be repealed or replaced? There's been reference already from the administrator to the content neutral regulation of signs. Again, would this be a sale or a lease? A lot of that information is not apparent from the proposal. I believe last time it was for a 99-year lease, but I would say a 99-year lease in this scenario would probably be an irregular lease term. So to answer your question directly, after I've been rambling for a moment, yeah, those are still kind of the 6 major high-level considerations. Like I said, procurement, you've got to make sure it's a reasonable and fair and adequate consideration that the county would be providing for a lease or a sale. There's a lot to work through, but it can be worked through. And if council wants direction, yeah, we can look at it. The comp plan really might be one of the larger impediments, and I have not been in the weeds to review that. But depending on the content of the comprehensive plan, there might be verbiage and findings in there that make provision of billboards in that area of the county something that can't be accomplished unless the comp plan's even amended. I do not know the answer to those questions yet.
My follow-up question is going to be, I think some of what you said, but if we move forward, how can we make this happen legally between Rox, you, and Dennis? Can we make this happen? Is it doable?
So I don't think it's doable to allow for a surgical amendment of the regulations to allow just these 2 leases on just these 2 precise locations. So the council needs to make a decision about whether they want to allow, where they want to allow billboards, what districts, what provisions, what size restrictions. Those are questions I can't answer that y'all would have to provide input and guidance on.
But there's,
Have to do some homework, in other words.
yeah, and also it has to have enough votes to pass council. I mean, and in January, we're going to have a council member that's from that area, and I'm pretty sure my constituents are not too enthused about billboards.
Mr. Chairman, if you come into Lancaster County from the north, you'll see a big billboard up there right before you get to 160. There's a lot of information that's on that billboard that is very helpful. You know, if you want to know what the temperature is, it's up there. If you want to know what time it is, your wife won't have to ask you. You can say, look up there, look at that sign. There's a sign that gives you the time. You look at churches all over this county, there are smaller signs in on church property, on businesses that are giving you the date, the time, what's going on. And in this case here, we have opportunity to put all kind of public service messages on these signs. I think it's a tremendous idea that we do this. We're a growing county. We need to inform the people. Instead of the sheriff have to put these signs, these trailers or whatever on the side of the road at holidays, if you drink, don't drive. That's what could go on that billboard. there is so many things that would be beneficial to the public, like accident ahead, take another road, whatever. There's just so many things that would benefit the citizens of Lancaster County by simply having that information available.
My citizens are going to take a totally different view.
Mr. Chair, I've got some comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Marcy.
These signs, a couple of them up, I don't want to see a bunch of them. I mean, just say go wild with signs up there, but a couple of them up there, as Councilman Honeycutt said, would be beneficial to our citizens of this information that Mr. Crenshaw can put on, or our sheriff can put on, or anytime there's a child missing or a storm coming or whatever. And I think that would be beneficial to our citizens to have a couple of those. And these signs are, I don't know if, I'm sure all of you have just seen them in other towns, but they're not just a billboard with just the same reading all the time. It's just one thing plastered on there. These constantly changing and giving different information and stuff. And I think a couple up through there would be beneficial, and I think we could possibly fix it to where maybe we could put it on some institutional or whatever, and maybe if we want to do them every couple, 2 miles, 2.5 miles, nothing in between or something like that, we could spread them out, and they wouldn't be nothing cluttered together, a bunch of them together. I think we could make this work, and I would like to see it work.
If it's on institutional, this is a question for the attorney, do we not have to offer it to other people and we can't zero it in on one applicant?
Yes, that's why one of the points made in my letter is the county would have to consider the policy considerations and just the procurement process, what this would look like, whether it's an RFP. I mean, I do not think the county can simply pick a winner or a loser, or 2 or 3 winners or losers and close the door on everyone else. I mean,
but our regulations can be put together where we can make decisions on how far apart, certain regulations.
That's right.
Yes. I mean, it will be a monumental undertaking because the signs touch on all aspects of various aspects of the UDO. The fact that these signs change, just as y'all were mentioning, it implicates the electronically changeable sign provisions of our ordinance. And how do you change those for a billboard but not for any other signs? I mean, there are a lot of sticky legal concerns that would need to be worked through.
Well, I think we need to kind of work through those sticky, leaky concerns and kind of bring to us what we need to change and what we need to do to make this happen.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see it added to our agenda next meeting in October, first meeting in October. What else we got to do to make this happen? Whatever it is legally, whatever it is, do we have to make an ordinance to put them in place? Whatever it takes for us to do it, I'd like to see it done by the next meeting so that we can discuss it then and know what we're talking about, because there's at least 4, possibly 5 on this council would like to see this take place.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Carnes.
Just so, I don't know that an ordinance effectuating this can be delivered in one meeting. I mean, every effort will be undertaken, but I'm stressing that this is a very monumental undertaking with a lot of very serious sticky legal concerns that would have to be worked.
Yeah, and I got concerns if we're doing this right at the end of your term and there's a new council member coming in there that represents a whole different district and actually represents the district that's going to be affected.
It really doesn't matter, Terry, if...
It does too matter.
Wait a minute, let me finish. It really doesn't matter as far as if this council decide to pass an ordinance. We do that if we've got enough time left in the year and to get the information done. It's just that we don't want to leave an ordinance hanging where we won't be able to vote on it before the end of the year. And I think that's where we're at this year. We've got to complete all active ordinance, right? Because we got someone new coming in. Am I right, John?
That has been your practice, yes.
So if we've got time to do this and we put forth the effort, I think we need to do it. Now, when a new council comes in, new councils can change and do whatever. I'm not saying we will, but I think we don't need to handicap ourselves and say a new council has come in or we have a new council in place.
Would this require changes to the UDO?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, may I have my
Well, yes,
recognized
sir.
time?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Carnes.
Thank you. My concern with this is, and my feeling is that the county does not need to be in business of renting property or land to a for-profit business. Now, if we want to change the zoning to affect this, I think that's the way to go. But I don't think the county needs to be involved as far as offering up property for a rent.
Well, we do that with the soccer fields, obviously.
This is a different situation than the soccer fields.
I'm just
Mr.
saying,
Chair, I got something to say on that. Mr. Crenshaw is willing to give 10 acres in the Beaufort community of prime property that's on the corner of Rocky River Road there near the high school, and in exchange for being able to use that property. And this would be real beneficial to Lancaster County, these 10 acres. The fire services is really excited about getting this maybe for a future fire department at Beaufort. It's close enough to the current station that it would not have hurt the ISO ratings. Everybody would still be within the limits of ISO. This would be real beneficial to our Beaufort community to get this land. And it would offset what you're talking about there, Brian, as far as he's giving us his land for that 12 by 25, whatever, for him to be able to use that piece of property. I think it's 12 by 25, whatever it is, for that sign to go. But we need to take a hard look at this, being able to get this piece of property, because that's a real valuable piece of property there.
It doesn't help Indian land anything. When you're putting these signs
We're not
up,
hurting Indian land.
you are hurting Indian land. That's the whole point.
No, it's not.
It is too, Mr. Mosteller. Ask the constituents of Indian land.
Mr.
How
Chairman.
many emails you want?
Go ahead, Mr. Bradley.
Well, first of all, I agree with Mr. Mosteller about we're not trying to put billboards all in Indian land or up and down 521 in some sort of crowded fashion. So I'm going to propose something here in a minute that hopefully will take care of that. Number two is also this 10-acre parcel. I've now been by it 2 times since this has been brought up. This is a prime piece of property. I'm committed to really looking hard at the fire service this year if we as a council will do that, because I think we need to make plans for the future for that fire commission one way or another, whether it be districts and things like that. But this property, to me, is very strategic for that purpose. Number two is, I think that I would like to see us instruct staff right now to look at amending the corridor overlay, and then having a UDO amendment that would allow billboards in the institutional zoning districts, but with maybe like conditional approval. So therefore, we can limit which institutions it would go in, because then we also need to look at the size restrictions we have for billboards too. We need to be competitive with the one that's up there in 160, because again, at that point in time, we accomplish these things. We also look at the procurement code to see if this is not a sole source type situation. I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it isn't, but it needs to be looked at simultaneously with the idea this is a rare opportunity we have to get this 10 acres, and at the same time, we don't have to lease it. We can sell it with revision clauses that says at any time it ceases to exist in the billboard function that's allowed, it can revert back to the county at fair market value or something like that. So I think by instructing the staff to do that right now, I think we can move this thing forward. I know if we don't do something in the way of giving staff specific instructions tonight, this thing will linger. And I think we probably, if y'all want to claim it's Indian land versus the rest of us, that's fine. But if you look at it this way, I still think there's going to be 4 people after the first of the year that's going to be in favor of this. So it's just a matter of how do we make it happen, and those things I just suggested are the ways to move this thing forward. Now, at any point in time, we can always vote it down, but we at least can move this thing forward, getting the mechanism in place to allow this to happen and happen on a limited basis, because there are really 2 places I think are very prominent. One would be the recreational facility up in Indian Land, and then the second would be down south of the 5, which would be at the EMS headquarters. And I think with those 2, we might be in a position that we could barter for the 10 acres. But without those 2, I don't think we're going to be in a position to barter for the 10 acres.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We just spent millions of dollars to upgrade the recreation center in Indian Land, and we have a beautiful building sitting there. Why would we want to put a billboard out in front of it so it blocks the view of the building? Again, I don't have a problem with the billboards. I just don't think it needs to be an institutional property. If you changed it to be an institutional property, who's got the institutional property up in Indian Land? The school district, the county, and churches. I don't think it needs to be in any of those pieces of property.
Ms. McGriff, did you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say I agree with Alan once again tonight.
You
agree with him that it's Indian land against the rest of the country?
No, not that part. Not that part.
That sounds like it.
But I agree with the other comment.
I'm not going to get into whether I'm for or against. I mean, that's not what we're doing here. The process for, we're already in the end of September. If you're wanting to propose a UDO amendment, when does, if somebody had one ready tomorrow morning, when would it go on the agenda of the Planning Commission? That'd be November? Are you already into I'm just looking at time frames, even.
The Planning Commission would be a November Planning Commission meeting. Yeah, if you had one today, we could schedule it for the Planning Commission meeting in November, but absent some other information.
So you got, then it would take a 3-reading ordinance.
After that,
Even after.
Goes to the Planning Commission.
But you still got to work through all the 6 points that the attorney said. I mean, you got to get through all 6 of those.
Correct, absolutely, and still some more direction about.
Can't come at the earliest December, and it's not going to make it before the 1st of January. I mean, I don't think.
Yeah, do an initial read of the time frame to see what we could do, because there are a lot of unanswered questions. The thought was, could you have a conversation in October at the Cal meeting about it? But then again, depend on the amendments we're talking about with the overlay district to get that before the Planning Commission, and then to come back for the 3 readings. You are into the new year.
We have 2 things, don't we? Changing the overlay district and allowing billboards in the institutional.
No, you got to look at the comprehensive plan. I mean, the attorney spoke to 6 things.
I'm sorry, what, Terry?
The attorney spoke to 6 items that all have to be addressed.
Right. So yeah, so part of the other questions on this is about if you're doing a change to the highway corridor overlay, looking at the other highways that impacts. So thinking about how you're trying to tailor this or not tailor this, there is some clarification that we need to know what to bring forward.
And my thoughts are going to be with the process, because I think that's what that's my role in this.
So Steve, I think we've got at least 4 people here that can address these 6 things. The first thing I addressed was number 1 that the attorney brought up, the overlay district. All that needs is an amendment. Number 2.
Will that also include all the highways? Is it just 521, or is it overlay districts throughout the county?
As far as I'm concerned, we can do it for all of the overlay. Number 2 is the institutional zoning districts, allowing it there. That is nothing more than an ordinance change. That does need to go to Planning Commission and 3 readings by us. The legal practical difficulties in enacting amendments to the UDO to allow billboards on only Lancaster-owned properties. I don't think I've said that yet. We said it, make it an institutional, because if in fact, once we get down this road of the legal clarity, then we still got the negotiation possibility of the 10 acres for the right to put these billboards up. Policy concerns allowing long-term leases that you've requested. Yeah, there's a policy concern there. All we got to do is vote on it. Do we do a 99-year lease, or do we just deed the property over? That's necessary for the billboard, especially with some revisionary clauses that if it ever ceases to function as a billboard site, then it has to come back first right of refusal to the county. So there's ways we can make this much more palatable. Number 5, the lease of county, well, it seems to be a little redundant there. The RFP approach, yeah, I just suggested that we look at the fact that this is unique. Can we go through the sole source process? I briefly glanced at the procurement code. I'm not going to say yay or nay that we can't. If we can't, then we put it out to bid. That's fine. If the state statute and our procurement code requires that, that's just what we have to do, and then it'll be competitive for Crenshaw Visions or anybody else to be able to put them in these strategic locations. And I don't think we have any federal or state regulations that are prohibited or an impediment to our proposal, number 6. So what I'm asking, or what I've suggested is, let's move.
Well,
We've got 5 meetings, scheduled meetings.
so this council's going to jump through hoops for one applicant.
No.
We don't know if
That's the way it
it's
is.
going to be one applicant or not. It may have to be a bidded process. But I'm just saying, just like our ordinance, y'all, we hired that partner from whatever law firm it was. He drug his feet and billed us out the wazoo for like 9 months, 10 months before we ever got our own county ordinance amended. And I just don't see why we need to be dragging our feet when the solution is there, if we're in favor of it.
This council makes its biggest mistakes when it does things under pressure and rushed. Look at the current UDO we got that had to be passed before the end of 2016, and we're about to do the same thing with this thing. Why can't we take our time and look at it seriously? I don't have a problem with looking at it, but I have a problem with cramming it in.
I just don't think it's rocket science what I've suggested that we do. And that, therefore, I think we can make those steps and move this thing forward. At any point in time, we got three readings coming up. As y'all have told me before, we got one more reading, we can consider it, so.
We can't consider it until the Planning Commission considers it.
I'm just saying.
And we won't have 3 readings left in the year by the time they consider it.
I'm not worried about the year, y'all. I'm just worried about us, just
Well, that's what
like
you're
just like
saying,
shooting
right.
ranges. We studied that ad nauseum and didn't do one blame thing.
Well,
And so that's where I find us, that we do not need to be.
Are you not interested in the feedback from citizens?
Sir?
Are you not interested in the feedback from citizens at all?
Sure.
Well, then you're going to get them, I'm sure.
And Alan, I think too, we should possibly maybe have it where they're scattered out so far they can't be so close together. So every
Or
2 mile
conditional
or
approval.
something, and that way you're not going to end up with so many. I just want a couple information boards up there for our citizens to be able to get some information to them.
This question's for Mr. DeBose and Mr. Marstow. If somebody on this council would like to, there are different issues that have to be addressed, and of course, there has to be changes in the overlay district and the UDO. Somebody on council can propose, anybody can propose a change to the UDO, is that correct?
Correct, I understand.
So if
Yep.
somebody wants to move this forward, they can request a proposed change and it would go, it would,
I think if you're proposing an amendment to the UDO as a citizen, I don't know that you could necessarily
no,
vote
but I
on
mean,
the matter that you're proposing. But
if a council person wanted to propose, they can propose.
And the council can too.
I mean, routinely, for UDO amendments that came to the attention of planning staff, it's not unusual for the administrator to apply for a text amendment. But yeah, essentially anyone can apply for a text amendment.
So
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and instruct staff to propose a text amendment for the overlay district, as I've talked about, to include in that a conditional approval process for each billboard and put in some distance separations to guarantee, as Mr. Bostel is concerned, that there won't ever be too many too close apart. I just don't see very many going in, period. And then we got one south of 5 that I think is a great location, one north of 5. And that we also look at increasing the size of the billboard, and of course, allowing it in institutional.
Where are you going to be south of 5?
The EMS headquarters.
No, he was talking about the EMS station at Walnut Creek.
Okay, well, then.
About EMS headquarters.
Huh?
Talking about EMS headquarters.
One thing I'll need guidance on is this distance separation and making sure that that's not prejudicing similarly situated properties that also have the same zoning. I mean, that's, again, I think an issue with the separation requirement potentially implicates equal protection concerns. If there's a valid policy rationale for where these things might be located, then it's perhaps defensible. But if it's arbitrary distances, again, it's something I'd have to look at.
Second Alan's motion.
all right, would you repeat that one more time?
I make a motion that we instruct staff to present a proposal to the UDO which will modify the corridor overlay district to allow billboards, to amend the UDO to allow billboards in the institutional zoning districts with conditional approval, and then include in there a 2,000-foot distance separation. And then I propose that we increase the billboard size to equal the one that's at 160.
2,000 feet?
2,000 feet, Alan? You're going to have a whole bunch of them on 521 at 2,000 feet?
Let's make an amendment then. What do you like to put?
I'd like to put 100 miles.
At least 2 miles in there separation.
All right, 2 miles in my motions. We don't have to do it.
Here we go. We're doing something on the fly.
So the practical effect of this is that I, as administrator, would then submit a text amendment to the planning commission with this information to get that process moving forward.
Yes.
So,
And then at the simultaneously, I would like to instruct staff to look at, while that's going on, a whole separate dynamic of whether or not we can use sole source methodology in the procurement code to facilitate a trade for the 10 acres of land in the Beaufort community for 2 sites that we just discussed. Which would begin the process of negotiation on whether or not even Crenshaw Visions is number 1 on the list, or whether we have to go to another method, and there has to be open bidding. That's fine too, but at least I like that 10 acres. I think it's a very big value. So that's why I'm favoring that idea.
Well, you used to say you were looking after Indian Land's interest, but I think most of the people in Indian Land tonight realize you're not.
As we look at the procurement part of this conversation, usually our practice is to secure 3 appraisal, or get appraisal for the property, which has not been done yet. So that would be part of the sole source conversation, step 2. So we need to see if we can get that taken care of as well.
All right, we've got a motion from Mr. Blackman and a second from
Mr. Mosteller.
To move this and have staff recommend changes to the overlay and the UDO, is that correct?
Text amendment, yes.
All right, just to make it clear for, with everyone here, that if, if staff comes up with that, it will not go unto the planning commission for their consideration in November.
That would be the
There's,
next time frame.
And it will be up to them whether they move it forward or not. So, I mean, that's, at this point, that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with getting close on time, but, I mean, we'll move forward and see what happens.
Mr. Chairman, even if we have to move it to the beginning of the year, all of the preliminary work and study and would have already been done if we don't make it to the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, it's back on the agenda for approval. At least we've gone through all our due diligence and what we need to do to make it happen. But we need to get started, as Alan said, now.
All right. Any more comments before we vote? All right, we got a proposal to move this forward. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, likewise. The vote is 5 for and 2 opposed. So anything else on the agenda? I ain't got my paper in front of me.
No, that's it, Mr. Chairman. No executive sessions this evening, so you can move to adjournment.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adjourn these proceedings.
Motion for Mr. Honeycutt, have a second for Mr. Graham. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. This meeting is adjourned.
I mean, I'm doing what I think I have a problem with it, Terry. I don't have a target.
What I'm saying is, even if
I'm not doing anything wrong.
we don't make it to the end of the year, because we have to pay.
I don't have a problem. And I'm not wanting but a couple, Terry. I want something for Terry. I don't want to hear that shit. I don't want to hear that shit.
I told you, I already know that, because I know it.
Yeah.
They gonna-
Hey, buddy.
But we're putting one in our area, I mean, south of 5,
Here, Garrett.
and one above.